All right, I think we're live. So I'll just get to the screen share here, and we'll get started. So first, let's discuss this word saving. People, we heard Nihad today, mention that mainstream adoption is about getting people saving and paying with Bitcoin. So what is the saving part? The saving part is a cash inflow. So when you have a cash inflow, you put cash on your balance sheet, and you hold that, and that is saving. Now, in economics, they have different interpretations of it and whatnot, but I think this is the one that most people understand, and it makes sense. So why do people save? Why do they hold cash? Well, it's because on the other side of cash outflows, they have uncertainty. And that goes towards both different kinds of goods. Producer goods, so investing and financing cash flows, are uncertain. And not only are the outflows uncertain, so are future inflows. I think that this diagram doesn't capture that part, but the inflows are also uncertain from all of these different ways of earning cash or receiving it. And then on consumer goods, that would be like operating cash flows, right? But for an individual, you're just talking about buying a TV and some potato chips. Okay, so what is cash? Well, if the purpose of holding cash is to hedge against uncertainty in future cash flows, you're going to want the asset with the least uncertainty. And so let's talk about what uncertainty is. It's when you don't know what the possible outcomes are going to be. So you don't even know what set of scenarios are in your future with regards to cash. And you also, crucially, don't know the probabilities of those different scenarios occurring, those different contingencies. And you can contrast this with risk. In risk, you kind of just know what the range of possible outcomes is, and you have enough data to be able to attach a probability to it. Now, obviously, you don't know. There's all sorts of risk to risk, right? So it does, just because you're able to quantify it doesn't mean that you have an exact understanding of the future. But you see this in actuarial science, where basically with risk, you're able to create an insurance product that's viable. Okay, so what creates uncertainty in a monetary system? Well, on the savings side, being easily seized. So if anyone can just come along and take your property, that's going to be a very uncertain asset. And then the arbitrary supply, where if anyone can just create as many units of whatever monetary unit you're using, then you're going to have too much uncertainty there. On the payment side, being able to receive and send payments is obviously the greatest source of uncertainty. So if you have to ask for permission, or if your transactions can be censored in this monetary system, then that's just inherently an increase in the uncertainty of it. And it all comes down to trusted third parties. So they are the key reason why uncertainty is increased. Now, getting rid of them, well, we'll get into that, but they are the source of chaos in the system from the perspective of trying to minimize uncertainty. If everything's within your control, then really you're reducing the surface area over which there can be uncertainty. So, for example, with a trusted third party, you have to have the knowledge that they're going to be able to transport the asset to where you want physical delivery. That can actually have a lot of uncertainty to it for anyone who has worked in that industry. It also has risk, right? But you can insure against that. And so people will insure goods as they travel and whatnot. So what reduces uncertainty in a monetary system? Well, being resistant to seizure. So if it's expensive to extract the asset, illegitimately, then it's by very definition, there's going to be less uncertainty, right? Because you're going to be able to control that asset. Second, on the savings side is the fixed monetary policy. So, this is where in the fiat system, they try to maximize uncertainty on the monetary policy side. so that they minimize the exchange rate risk of fiat, right? They're trying to maintain a stable value. And so in order to maintain a stable value, you'll hear people like Jay Powell say, we will print as many dollars as needed to maintain the stability of the value of the dollar. And so, from that perspective, you have a lot of uncertainty on the monetary policy. Bitcoin does the opposite, right? Bitcoin gives you a lot of certainty, not absolute certainty, and people debate this, and our host today, Ryan, has debated it as well. There's not absolute certainty on the monetary policy, but it is far greater than any of the alternatives and any other monetary system out there today. On the payments side, so being permissionless, where anyone can join the Bitcoin network, anyone can join the Lightning network. They can access it through the ClearNet, they can access it through Tor. Now, you got satellites. There's going to be an increasing number of ways of being able to access Bitcoin. And so I think that its permissionless nature is really only going to increase over time, and it's already pretty good. And then censorship resistance. We've never seen miners not mine a transaction. And so from that perspective, you could argue that it's even censorship proof. The difficulty really is at the on and off ramps because fiat is not censorship resistant. And so that's where you'll see people get censored, when they're exchanging Bitcoin for fiat. So decentralized verification is what decreases uncertainty because people are able to independently verify these properties of the system. And so being able to do that without relying on a third party, you're just relying on the software on your laptop, on your computer. And that is what is going to allow you to really have a tremendous amount of certainty about the system. So my view is that Bitcoin is the least uncertain monetary system. In any case, I digress. Peter, how are you?
I'm all right. I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah. Do you want to?
I've got one question. I've got one question before we close out, because you talked about BTC Pay Server.
Yeah.
And we talk about Lightning Network, but there's also this kind of thread in Bitcoin of hodling and telling people not to spend their Bitcoin. How do you kind of balance the two? Because the two kind of ideas seem to contradict each other.
Yeah. So I think that what we are going to see is that with every bull cycle, there's some percentage of people who go from like talking a big game about stacking sats to kind of being on the opposite end of the trade of being like, wow, that's a lot of value I've got here in Bitcoin, and I'm going to go spend some. And so there's kind of a wealth effect on that side of like people who have held Bitcoin for a long time who are cashing out. Right now, we can say that pejoratively and be like, tisk tisk, shame on you, because you're not helping Bitcoin by selling it. But I think that at the end of the day, humans have some marginal propensity to consume. And it's not like everyone has perfect low time preference where, they're going to be stacking sats and their great grandchildren will be as well. And not one sat shall be spent. I'm sure that there are, I would call them devout cult members who have that mentality. But I think most people are more pragmatic and say like, hey, at $100,000, I'm going to buy a house, or at $500,000, I'm going to buy 2 Lambos. So I think that there's like that. Everyone is eventually going to spend. I'm kind of using ridiculous examples, but there's more mundane ones of people just buying, computer equipment or whatever.
But I guess what I was getting at is, do you think like the hodl narrative, don't spend your Bitcoin, is actually, it's like counterproductive? It's not particularly helpful for someone like BTC Pay Server.
Well, so I think that people are going to work on projects that scratch their own itch. So I think that there are hodlers or people who want to accumulate Bitcoin, who want to accept Bitcoin payments. And so this is being driven on that side of things rather than on the consumer side of things, of consumers petitioning businesses asking for them to add Bitcoin as a payment option, which has occurred in the past. The Bitcoin community used to think that the way to grow Bitcoin is to go harass businesses until they accept Bitcoin. And now we have the opposite dynamic of, people who are Bitcoiners who also are small business owners who are like, hey, I think it'd be neat if I accepted Bitcoin. Oh, here's this awesome open source project that can allow me to do that.
All right, cool. Well, listen, look, we've run over slightly. Good to see you again because it's been a while. I'm going to invite Taj in, but thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.